Now recording.
All right, Craig's here. What are we talking about?
Um, who are
oh
you,
yeah, we're the Grumpy Dungeon Masters. I'm Jay, and you're Chris. I think this week.
Christopher?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Uh-huh.
Uh huh. I didn't stutter. I
So,
said your na-
anyways,
I said your name. Anyways,
I found an interesting thing on D&D, the D&D subreddit,
is it the thing
and
you sent me earlier?
yes, it is.
I don't know how that's interesting because it's literally what we talk about every 2 weeks on this thing.
What DM's changing the rules on players without telling them?
Yes, and not to ever do that.
Well, there's another good example, and one that I was thinking about. So,
Yeah, it's a solid example of a really bad dungeon master. So go ahead.
so to paraphrase this thread that was posted, is that the DM's not letting his player resurrect, and I guess there's two incidences of not being able to get healed, and then one instance of not being able to get resurrected. So the first instance is the more interesting one to talk about. Is the player got knocked down to bleeding out and was then pushed into the water. And when they were in the water, the DM wouldn't let whatever the cure spell is that's ranged,
Healing
um,
word.
healing word. It wouldn't let healing word um, give the guy hit points back because he said he was drowning, and um, the player rolled a 20 on his death save, and he said that didn't bring him up to one hit point because that constitutes as healing.
So
Now,
that's
I found
yeah.
found that interesting because that's kind of what Raw is, but I don't think it's rules as intended.
That is two instances of the DM not actually following the rules, is what that is. The
Well,
rules as written.
the rules as written saying is if you're suffocating, if you're drowning, you can't regain hit points.
Of which you do not begin drowning until you fail your Constitution check, I believe it is. Like you don't actually start drowning, and I don't have the rule here in front of me, so hopefully I'm
Yeah,
right.
it's like a
After
minute for every one of your
for every con modifier plus that you have.
yeah.
So he's got several minutes probably before he ever starts drowning.
Well, I think what the DM did is that he basically said the second that his unconscious body hit the water, that he was instantly drowning. That's what I think the DM was thinking, because the holding your breath thing is a conscious action to do, hence the saves and the
Yeah,
time
but
periods.
once again, that's not rules as written.
No, that's rules as written, holding your breath and everything. Drowning doesn't begin until you fail your con save after your allotted time holding your breath. Now,
I'm gonna pull up the actual wording for
if you're
drowning.
thrown in the water, I guess there's a 50-50 on whether you land face first into the water or land on your back in the water. So that's the first thing you really kind of need to work out. So if you land face first in the water, your face is in the water. I wouldn't say
Okay,
you're holding your breath because you're unconscious. So you'd
okay.
start
After reading drowning, I can see I could see why he would say that. I
read
don't.
drowning.
Okay, yeah, drowning. After 1 plus con bonus minutes of holding your breath underwater, you fall unconscious. So if the character's already unconscious, it sort of breaks that.
Yeah.
Uh, your hit points fall to zero, and you can then survive for a number of rounds equal to your con modifier, minimum of 1 round. After that, you begin making your death saves as per the standard rules. However,
Mhm.
if you become stable, there's a problem. If you are still underwater, you can't remain stable. So you must start making death saving throws again. This continues until you die unless you're saved in some way. So getting heals puts you beyond stable. It puts you at perfectly okay. If you got 1 hit point, you're beyond stable. Stable is zero.
Right, but I don't think you can get hit points back if you're actively drowning.
I mean, there's nothing that says you can't. Literally nowhere in drowning does it state that. So I can understand why the DM would say that he was drowning, but he is absolutely incorrect in the not being able to be healed while drowning.
Let me look it up.
I mean, I just read the entirety of drowning.
I know, I'm trying to find it too. Drown. I can't find drowning. On D&D Beyond, it's drown. Nope. Drowned.
I just Googled it.
Well, I don't trust Google.
You don't trust you don't trust the internet?
I do not trust the internet. No.
What are you, me?
No, I'm absolutely not you.
You don't trust the internet.
Okay, so I found the rules. It's not drowning in the what book is this? Is it the DMG or the Player's Handbook?
Could
It
be
is okay. It's basic rules. Suffocating. It's pretty much everything you just said. You can hold your breath for a number of minutes equal to 1 plus your con modifier, a minimum of 60 seconds. When you run out of breath or he's choking, it can survive a number of rounds equal to your con modifier, minimum of 1 round. At the start of its next turn, it drops to 0 hit points and is dying. It can't regain hit points or be stabilized until it can breathe again.
So that's suffocating.
Yes.
See,
For
that's
example, a creature with a constitution of 14 can hold its breath for 3 minutes. If it starts suffocating, it has 2 rounds to reach air before it drops to 0 hit points. So, yes, the heals don't work if you are suffocating. So, if you're thrown in the water while you're unconscious, I can see the DM saying that he can't regain hit points because
I'm about to
he
kill all
landed
my fucking players.
face first in the water and you can't regain hit points because he's suffocating because he's unconscious. I can get that.
Okay, so for creatures that breathe underwater, or for players that breathe underwater, how's that gonna work?
They're not suffocating, they can breathe underwater.
I'm gonna have to look all this shit up now.
No, I mean, if you can breathe underwater, you wouldn't be suffocating while you're in the water and you could be healed as normal. But if you're thrown in the water and you're face down in the water, which I would roll even or odds to see if you land face down or face first in the water, then you can be regain hit points or not. You know, I'd be fair to the players because the monsters did this to the player. The monsters threw the players in the water. So the DM seems to be actively out to fuck over the players.
Oh yeah,
So
no, the DM's definitely out to kill this character.
yeah. So
Well, no, it gets way fucking worse than just throwing the dude in the water. Continue with the rest of this
so
story.
the second instance where the true resurrection didn't work because the first time was drowning and getting a heal and drowning and rolling a 20 on the death save and that not working. The players eventually saved the person from the water, stabilized them, and they moved on. Then later, the player was down by, I think he said bugbears, who then dragged this PC off and then basically chopped them up into little bits and then scattered him everywhere or ate him or something. And they weren't
Yeah,
really
it
specific on
yeah
what happened.
they didn't get specific.
They
Just
stated that they were only able to find little bits of bone of the PC's character. So then they brought that back to have a revive cast on it, specifically True Resurrection. Okay, which the DM stated would work to resurrect somebody because True Resurrection restores everything. And then the DM said that it didn't work. So the DM says that yeah, you can cast True Resurrection on those little bits and they come back to life. And then they didn't let it work. Now maybe he's like, oh, the bits of bone that you brought back weren't 100% your friend or some dumb bullshit. I don't know, but
that was yeah. He never mentioned that in
yeah,
there. It was very simple, as in the monsters chopped him up into pieces. They apparently get true resurrection, and the DM says, "Sure, you can get true resurrection." And then after they actually get it, he says, "No, it doesn't work."
I
They,
don't understand.
yeah,
He wanted this player to die.
yeah. I mean, that's an attempt to kill the character. All of that, all every single bit of it, from the beginning to the not allowing resurrection, is an attempt to kill the character.
Like I said,
Uh,
I can kind of get with the suffocating thing, but he definitely
I,
wasn't being nice about it.
while apparently the word suffocating and drowning are, suffocating, I guess, is the actual
Well,
terminology. And
that's why I don't trust googling specific terms
sure,
like
uh,
drowning 5e because they forget pieces that they don't care about or they become homebrew rules. So
oh
when
yeah,
you're googling something, either get the Rule 20
That
basic rules because
that
that's
being said, I've never heard this rule. I would never use that rule because it's a stupid rule. It might be the rule, but then again, I disagree with a lot of the rules. Yeah.
yeah. It doesn't come up much. I've drowned one player in my tenure
But
of
because it is the actual rule, it is difficult to fault the DM for using it that way.
the
Even if it
healing
was
part.
yeah, even if it was never discussed ahead of time, it's there's the rule. We read it. Agree with it or not, the DM was correct in how that works. But then having the monsters attack the same character again, chop him up,
Drag him off.
drag him off, chop him up. By the way, where the fuck's the rest of his party when all this is happening? Like, what
They
the
were
fuck is
very
going on
sufficient.
here?
They were butchers. They were butcher bugbears, so
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
able to
They
chop him
chopped him
real
up,
good.
threw him in a stew, made delicious tacos and sandwiches out of him, and when they pooped him out and the bits of bone were then attempted to be fully true resurrection, the DM said no. All right, so now let's look up true resurrection because if we're gonna go on exact wording,
Okay.
then let's pull it up. All right, true resurrection, ninth level spell, casting time 1 hour. Take a creature that has been dead for no longer than 200 years and that died for any reason except old age is the target. You touch a creature. You touch a creature that has been dead for no longer than 200 years and that died for any reason except old age. If the creature's soul is free and willing, the creature is restored to life with all its hit points. This spell closes all wounds, neutralizes all poison, cures all disease, and lifts any curses affecting the creature when it died. The spell replaces damaged or missing organs and limbs. The spell can provide a new body if the original no longer exists, in which case you must speak the creature's name. Creature then appears in an unoccupied space you choose within 10 feet of you. So, literally, any part of that creature is
Mhm.
sufficient to bring it back with true resurrection.
So there's a couple of things that could really just f over the player here.
I mean, if they pooped out, if they literally took chunks of bone from poop, maybe it's the wrong creature. You know?
Maybe maybe they took back the pieces of bone and was the wrong creature because they had terrible Taco Tuesday remains.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, maybe the spirit of the player wasn't willing because his DM's being an asshole.
No,
Maybe
I've been through that.
maybe maybe the PC introduced himself as Frederick when
Yeah,
his real
that's
name
yep,
was
that's true.
Beowulf or something.
I mean, yeah, it does say you have to speak the creature's name.
They probably didn't know his real name. And would you really want to have your like cool like scars replaced if you're like an old warrior? Maybe he wasn't willing. He didn't want to lose his cool scars
Yeah, but
and be true resurrected.
obviously in this scenario, the player he was willing to have the character come back. So that's not the
Right.
case. Uh, Maybe the DM gave an explanation to the player that the player did not post on Reddit, so we might not have every
Yeah.
ounce of information. But if we have every amount of information, that's the DM being a dick.
I'm sorry. That's only a cubic zirconian worth 25,000 gold, not a
Yeah.
diamond.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. The casting cost is 25,000 gold pieces. So oddly enough, I've kind of dealt with both of those mentions that you just brought up. One of them, and both of them involved our friend Muffin, our
Oh,
friend
did he
Jacob.
die?
Well, he had a character in one of our campaigns die. We literally trekked back 2 weeks to society to get I think it was raised dead. It wasn't true resurrection, but we got raised dead cast on him, and he said no. Yeah, that man, we were all pretty pissed about that one. Uh, the the other one, and it wasn't nobody ever had to be resurrected, fortunately, but he actually plays a character that's still around in my current campaign. He played him in the previous campaign. The character's name is Godfrey, but
Okay.
that is not his real name. That is the name that everybody knows. So if he got killed and they went to cast True Resurrection on him, it would not work because none of the other players know his real name.
Yeah, well, so that leads to like an interesting um conundrum is whether or not what is the name of a PC. Like, let's take my character from the LARP, for example. I know on the character sheet that my character's name is Thaladred, and that's what everyone knows me by.
Yes.
But technically, my birth name is something completely different given to me by my parents. But I don't associate with that because, like all good barbarian tribes in Shadow War, everyone got murdered when I was a baby. And
I mean,
as,
everybody in D&D and everybody in LARP, they
yeah,
all have tragic backstories.
when I actually was at the LARP, I actually was talking to a brand new player who's a barbarian. He's like, yeah, so what brought you here? He goes, well, my entire family with the tribe was killed, so I
Yep,
didn't have anything
yep.
else better to do. I was like, yeah, like the rest of us.
Yeah, yeah, literally you and every single person here.
Honestly, that should be written into the racial background information. Before you start your journey, your entire family and tribe is completely wiped off the face of the planet.
Yeah, so
Okay.
as a barbarian, you come from a tribe that no longer exists anymore, for they were all killed.
So, like, do you get that specific? Like, does it have to be the birth name the parents give you, or is it just a general name that people know you by?
Yeah,
You know?
me as the DM, I would say the name that they know you by would be sufficient, but
Yeah.
a DM could be a dick if they wanted to about that wording.
Because one of our players that are that is in our group and close to us, that I'm not going to name who, has a different name written on their character sheet and a completely different name that we refer to them as.
And well,
It's like,
then there's first and last name. Like my LARP character has a last name. Very few people actually know it. So mind you,
Rocksteady.
yeah, it's
Magnus
definitely
Rocksteady.
rock steady. Magnus was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan at birth.
That's my name for every. I actually have a Rocksteady mask. I was gonna like cut off like the fighter pilot part of it and just like wear the face of it and just go around just beating people up for no reason as a siege rhino.
So I had a encounter with two stone giants that I ran yesterday for my players.
Yeah.
I totally should have just named them Bebop and Rocksteady, because I should have. They're standing back just throwing rocks at the players the whole time. So,
Man, Bebop and Rocksteady honestly are the two best henchmen I think in any recorded media.
oh
Like there
no,
are really
no,
good henchmen out there, but
they're
Bebop and
fantastic.
Rocksteady to
But
me are just the best.
no,
Just two
20,
punkers, just here, drink this mutagen. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Follow, follow orders to the
I
letter.
I get it. I love Bebop and Rocksteady as well, but 21 and 24 are the best henchmen in the game. Here,
Uh, it's true.
they hit. I mean, all they do is hinge. Although 24 is dead at this point, but
Yeah, yeah. Bebop and Rocksteady aren't dead canonically.
yeah, well,
They
21,
killed Donatello,
but 21 goes absolutely batshit crazy and
but
murders everything after that.
but he's not a henchman duo anymore. Then he's just by
Well,
himself.
well, no, he still had a duo. He had 24 skull.
That doesn't count. He's not living.
He was talking to it the whole time.
Um,
For people who don't know 21 and 24, it's from the Venture Brothers TV show. But we're very off of track at the moment.
so Bebop and Rocksteady, best henchman duo, hands down. I mean, how hard was it to beat Rocksteady in the arcade cabinet? Like you could
Yeah,
normally beat Bebop in the newsroom, but the second you got to the street and you had to fight, no, the Rocksteady you beat up in the newsroom, but when you got to Bebop, he just wrecked you.
yeah.
I
See,
don't know why.
you're talking old people stuff now. I barely even remember that.
They killed Donatello. I mean, they
But
killed one of the four that they have by themselves.
also, now you've gone way out on a limb. By the way, there is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles tabletop game. I played it way
There
back
is.
in the '90s, early '90s, like when I first started playing RPGs.
Oh, speaking of RPGs, I saw an ad for Lord of the Rings Fifth Edition, officially licensed conversion.
I think there's an officially licensed version of that game
Yeah.
for. I know there was one for third because I own some books from it. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
there was from fourth. Second, I don't think so, but I actually own the Lord of the Rings tabletop that was produced when second edition was out. I actually still have a
yeah.
copy of it, but it wasn't actually D&D. It was its own system.
I think there was another company that had a license and had the one that does Fallout and those. I think they had Lord of the Rings for a little bit.
Okay,
Um,
but
but they
now
have,
everything's converting to 5e.
and that makes it very, very, very peculiar because there's a lot of extra 5e worlds out there. It's like Lord of the Rings. The guys that wrote Dragonlance, they have their own thing coming out, which
Yep.
hopefully I get soon. Um,
It's going to be out next year. Like
yeah,
I keep getting the updates since I was a
War War
Kickstarter.
Chief Gaming and Ouroboros. That setting comes out here soon. That's fifth edition.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just fifth edition books out there. Nerd Immersion wrote for a new uh 5e book that's out there. Like that's all I get on Facebook. It's just like, hey, look at this RPG shit,
Yep.
And there's a lot of fifth edition stuff. And I'm very curious is if that's gonna be a factor when they swap over to
6e
six.
comes out.
It's like, okay, no one's gonna change. Like, okay, I'm running fifth, all these fifth games, all these separate fifth games. Like, cool, yeah, your stories convert to sixth edition, but I can just convert it back because it's the same math. I don't have to stop using my fifth edition rule set. You know,
Yeah.
I
I don't foresee that being any sort of an issue. Like, I know some rules will change for 6th edition, but if like 5e, it runs clean, it runs smooth. If you've already got your own game going, why, you
yeah,
don't have to convert to the latest, newest thing.
right,
Uh, my D&D group, we're actually talking. We're still talking about backtracking and going back to third edition because 5e is not giving us what we want out of the
yeah.
system. It's
Um,
too generalized and too generic.
Jeffrey Ludwig, our friend, is talked to him for a little bit. He's running a 5e advanced game that's been
Yeah,
working out pretty well. So I don't
yeah.
know. It's just there's a lot of 5e content out there. It's really weird. Like they would even I would think they would want to focus more on developing more content and not redeveloping the
Yeah,
content.
but WotC has not been good about developing content for 5e. They've
Yeah.
been terrible about it, which we've talked about on here before. The difference between third edition and like second edition, third edition, fourth edition, and fifth edition was literally hundreds of products released, books specifically and modules.
Yeah.
So they have not done a real good job at actually releasing things. And I think the idea was to let the players just release things on the DM's guild. But that's not I don't think that's a good long-term strategy. Yeah, you
No,
have
and WotC as a company, they remember it was a 2021 or 2020 where they announced an initiative to basically double their yearly income over the next 5 years. And all they've done since that is just crash. Like the stock price was around like $100 and now it's 60.
wow, I didn't even
Um,
know that. Mind you, all stocks are down pretty heavily, but
no, this has been a decline since December.
yeah.
It basically it has not been going well. They're actually blaming um what is it? They're blaming Magic the Gathering specifically
Oh, I wonder
because
why.
they kept putting out all this content and people said that well they're not buying it enough. I'm like you released 17 sets last month. No one can buy everything.
Yeah, I do not even buy Magic cards because I don't have a clue what the hell they're releasing. They released so much shit over the past couple of years,
Yeah.
and so much of it is just money grabs.
Yeah.
Like a huge portion of it's just money grabs. I just want four legitimate sets per year. Yeah, all the others, and you can do an unset every couple of years, and maybe one of those like do like a premium set. Master set or some shit. Do one of those a year.
Yeah.
Like that's all I, as a player for Magic the Gathering, want. When you start releasing a tiny ass box set for $1,000 of proxies, no. No, just I hope your fucking company fails when you do shit like that.
Well, I really hope this spurs on the rise of splitting Wizards into its own company, just under the Hasbro umbrella instead of being controlled by Hasbro. Because I think a lot of that will fix some of the creative problems that they have
Good.
by
Yeah.
not being driven by make more money, make more money, make more money. Because like I think the content that D&D has, it comes out at a very good pace. It kind of worked very well. Like, we have the anthology book, and then we have a setting book, and then we have a rules expansion book, and then an adventure book,
Yeah, that's
and
way
then
too
a
slow.
wild card
I,
over the year.
over the course of a year, I would like them to
Yeah.
add 4 more books.
Well, I mean, then you're going to run into the problem. Like I barely finishing up X story before the next two have already come out.
And
Um,
well, they don't have to be. I'm not talking about campaigns. They don't have to be modules. They can literally just be source books. They can be information. They can be settings. It doesn't have to
yeah.
be campaign or modules or
And
whatever.
I honestly feel at sixth edition, they're basically being told we need you to sell the core books again because they make the most money.
Yeah, of course they do. It makes sense.
And yeah, instead of basically coming out with Player's Handbook 2, Player's Handbook 3.
Yeah, which people, a lot of people wouldn't buy those.
Yeah,
I know with third edition, I never owned Player's Handbook 2 or DM's Guide 2. I never bought any of those because I didn't need them.
yeah. So I feel like this whole sixth edition is just being brought on by, hey, we're losing money, not doubling our money like we said we wanted to. So put out the core books again. We don't need to. Everything is perfectly fine with our system. Just let it ride. No, put out a new set, new
Yeah,
edition. And I think it's going to blow up in their face. The more I watch this, the more I think it's just going to,
probably, yeah. Um,
blow up. It's going to become a fourth edition again, and people aren't going to buy it. They're not going to play it. People are going to get turned off by it. People are going to stay on fifth and just say, "Yeah, I'm just playing fifth." And they're going to put all these books, and maybe people buy the source books, but that's
what
it. But
I have the feeling, and mind you, I have no actual information this is based on. This is just a feeling that when they got the feedback, the initial feedback, I don't think that it would have been any different than what 5e already was. Like the changes that they threw out there that they wanted to make or that they were talking about making, I think every response would have been like, "No, why 5e works." Which
yeah,
means
5e works so well.
which means that they're not, yeah, if they don't make any changes to the setting or to the system, then effectively you're just releasing 5e again.
It's funny
And
how we're saying in one breath, my players don't like 5e because it's too simple, so we're going back to third. And then in the next sentence, 5e is perfect. Leave it alone. Don't touch it.
it
But
works.
it's the
It
weird
worked well.
conundrum.
Well,
But
now here's the difference though, because they released the second UA, and we haven't done the feedback on it yet. But the second UA actually showed some changes to the classes, and
yeah,
that's where the weakness has been. The fact that they're adding in a lot more feats, they're going very feat heavy, which is what third edition was.
yeah,
And those are actual good changes. The system itself works perfectly fine. They don't need to make a lot of changes there, but they do need to make changes to how often you get access to abilities. They need to make changes on when you level up. What can you do? That way, your character. I want to be able to build a I don't know, just a lore bard. And I want my lore bard to be 80% different from another lore bard. Like, yeah, the idea is to be able to create different characters even though you are the same thing as somebody else. And you do that through feats, you do that through having options at level up. When you get a fourth level ability or whatever it is, give me two choices of which I could pick from. Things like
yeah,
that. Because that gives you a lot more choice and a lot more creativity.
yep.
But I don't know that they're going to go that far. We'll have to wait and see.
Advanced 5e. It's perfect. It's the perfect addition to the thing, and
Yeah.
they could have done that. They could have released it. I bought it. You
Yep.
know.
Yeah, I got it. Well, I got the PDF of it. I'm actually about to jump in on the because they have apparently there's a Kickstarter or a Patreon that they do where they release more stuff every month for $10 a month.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly good paying $10 a month to get access to more stuff. And hopefully someday I will actually get to run my game as an advanced 5e game. but I'm right in the middle of it, and I'm sort of stuck in third, or stuck in fifth.
Yeah, I'm about to start up the water deep thing, so I'm looking forward to that. It's just gonna be straight. I've kind of just said anyone you can play anything you want. Um, as long as it's not Blood Hunter, I think I'm fine with whatever my players choose. Because I don't
No
know if
Matt
Blood.
Mercer, no Matt Mercer
No, no, no,
class.
no. Like if they wanted to go Gunslinger, I really at this point in time can't say no.
Well, I
But you're
think
gonna have
Blood
to give
Hunter.
me a really
Blood,
good reason why there's a Gunslinger.
I think Blood Hunter was a Matt Mercer thing, though.
Blood Hunter is a Matt Mercer thing, so is
Yeah.
Gunslinger.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so it's like Gravity Wizard. Um,
Nothing.
no Gravity
Nothing.
Fish in my campaign.
Nothing is Gravity Wizard except
Uh,
Gravity Wizard.
but I mean, like straight out of Waterdeep, there's the Drow Gunslingers. So it's really hard to say no firearms. Like if you give me a really good reason why you're going to be a gunslinger and you're a drow, it probably has to be a requirement. I'd
Yeah.
probably let it go through.
I'm a bit of a stickler about Forgotten Realms. I probably would not allow a gunslinger unless you're a follower of Gond.
Well, the other issue is that Artificer, I think, to me broke class restrictions because it's a very 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 powerful class. It can pretty much do anything it wants to do at any time. A creative player just eventually builds a nuke with it, and I it's hard. I'd rather people be a gunslinger than an artificer.
I've
What
played an
I
artificer. I've gone through all the artificer stuff. I don't really see them as any more powerful than any of the other classes. They
all the
have
magic items that
they
they
have
can create, all the steel defender makes things. It's just another PC essentially.
Steel
Um,
Defender is a little of a problem, but
Alchemy
like
is a joke. I'll say that.
yeah, sadly, alchemy is not particularly good. The Steel Defender one is probably the best of all of the
But
archetypes.
going building yourself an Iron Man suit and flying around and shooting laser beams from your hand
Not
is
that
just
good. It ain't that good.
it doesn't matter. It breaks the game. Like, oh, I need tinkerer tools. Okay, here are tinkerer tools. What's money economy? Oh, this door here. Oh, I have a magic acid flask. Okay, goodbye door.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
apparently you can just cast enlarge or shrink, and that'll get rid of any door anyway. So,
I don't think that works that way.
yeah, it seems to. Let's see. Now we gotta look this shit up. We talked
Yeah.
about, didn't we talk about
Damn it.
it on here before?
Well, hold on.
Shrink
Creature
spell,
or object
reduce,
you can see.
reduce.
Yeah.
That's it, reduce.
You couldn't enlarge a door. You could reduce a door. Yeah.
Yeah, so you call enlarge, reduce, reduce. The You cause a creature or an object you can see within range to grow larger or smaller for the duration. Choose either a creature or an object that is neither worn nor carried. If the target is unwilling, it can make a Constitution saving throw. On a success, the spell has no effect.
Well, my
Uh,
door is unwilling,
the
and it's gonna
reduce
make it
reduce
possible.
the target size is halved in all dimension, and its weight is reduced to 1/8 of normal. This reduction decreases its size by one category from medium to small. Blah blah blah. Like yeah, as much as I personally hate it because yeah, it really does sort of defeat the point of doors. Uh, but I don't see any reason it wouldn't work.
Yeah. No, I mean it works. It just I don't know. The artificer, the armorer, the artillerist, and the battlesmith, just in particular, because alchemist is kind of meh. I don't know.
I played the artillerist at 20th level,
It's
and
not the greatest, but
I mean
armorer and
it
battlesmith
was
are.
fun. I just cast a lot of fireballs and had two cannons that were sitting there throwing like a D8 plus 5 of damage or whatever the fuck it was. It wasn't a hell of a lot of damage. Uh,
And about up to like level 10-ish, the artillerist is pretty good, especially since uh it's an extra damage, like it's an extra attack per thing. Like kind of like how when I was playing my monk this weekend, having two 1d6 plus 4 attacks per round at level 1 just kind of broke
yeah.
the damage we could put out.
Yeah, the one space that the artillerist did seem to be really good at 20th level was the fact that I could have a lot of magic items, and this was not a campaign where we had gone from 0 to 20. This was a 20th level one shot. So we had hard rules as to how many magic items and what we would have access to,
Yeah.
and it did sort of allow me to get around those rules because I could create my own magic items with a lot of limitations, but because
Yeah.
of that I was able to get around certain rules.
Well, I don't really
Eh,
have many limitations other than what's written in the book. I let people be as creative as they want. So sometimes it backfires on me.
yeah, no, I
But
mean,
my whole
campaign's very
thought
different.
is that if you can magically create a cannon that basically obeys your commands and shoots at people, guns are also okay. And I've played a gunsmith. It's not terribly broken.
Yeah,
It's a flavor thing. If you don't want that flavor in the world, that's fine. But it's not like it breaks the encounters.
yeah,
Crossbows still
yep,
do equivalent or more damage. An archer is still better than a gunsmith.
yep.
And they don't really have a lot of other things to do but shoot. They're very kind of boring in that sense. They just shoot and shoot and shoot, and that's literally it. And if you don't give them better guns, then they can't do anything cooler.
Yeah, and my issues with the gunsmiths are specifically what you said. It is a setting issue. Like Forgotten Realms, guns are not known to be common, and my
Except
own
I'm
person.
playing Waterdeep,
Yeah, apparently,
and they're in the gun.
and my own personal campaign, it's pre gunpowder. Like the setting is supposed to be the equivalent of like you know, 600 or 700 AD. So they didn't have cannons, they didn't have flintlocks or anything of that nature. So I don't allow them in my setting. That's a
Yeah,
personal choice. So
I think a lot of it when it comes to the gunpowder, like in Faerun, from a setting standpoint, the reason why gunpowder isn't a prevalent and it's everywhere is mostly because magic is just prevalent everywhere. Everyone has the capability of accessing magic in some way.
yeah,
Even if you're a fighter, you can still take a feat to cast magic. So like gunpowder probably wasn't ever as needed when you have dudes that throw fireballs. But
hmm,
then if you shift over to Spelljammer and you look at a race that has no affinity for magic, like the GIF, they have gunpowder. They made gunpowder and they use it to full effect because they don't have anything to compete with magic.
yeah,
So
makes sense.
it's kind of like what happens when you introduce gunpowder into a magical world. It's just like, oh, that's just a weaker fireball. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
basically, you're just throwing a rock really freaking hard at other people. Uh,
And when you really get down to it, a computer is just a rock that you tricked into thinking with electricity.
yeah, I'm not even gonna get into this one.
So that's what happens with artificers. They go, well, I can build a computer. I have this living robot thing that shoot electricity out. So it has on and off with electricity, and I have a bunch of gold that I laid down into like thin strips of wire, and I could loop her all around this way and just fire off ones and zeros,
And
electricity
thanks,
on, electricity off. So I made a computer in Faerun, and this is why artificers aren't allowed.
yep, because
Oh,
next thing you know, you walk into a server room and yeah, it's got robots running things for it. I've actually done that in a campaign before, through magic, but not a computer per se. But yeah, I've had. Let's see, there was one where my players got into a fight with an oven, quite literally a robot oven.
yeah.
I know we've had cookie factories, that run through. They've got conveyor belts and all sorts of other shit running through them. And this is all stuff that's not, it's not medieval fantasy whatsoever. And most of the time, I avoid stuff like that. But every once in a while, I just want to have a little gnomish fun. It's always the gnomes that do shit like that.
Trying
Uh,
to remember the video game from the 80s and 90s. Crap, what was it?
I don't know.
Not EverQuest. Not um it became an online game too.
Ultima Online.
Yes, Ultima. So like the bad guy in Ultima 2, the second one. and then eventually loops back around to he's also the bad guy in like the fourth or fifth
Are
one.
you talking about the PC games or
Yeah,
the? Okay, yeah, because I think they were numbered differently for because I only ever played them on the regular Nintendo, so they're not the
right.
same games. But
They're not
yeah,
the same games as Nintendo, but they're actually all in the same world.
yes,
So, um, I can find the series and I can talk about it. So the
yeah,
Age of Darkness, okay, is basically you're fighting against this wizard named Modane, like for all three
yeah, mundane. So
Mondane. But it turns out actually that the reason why Mondane was kind of going crazy was because there was a supercomputer controlling him. There's like this just you beat Mondane and then you you get down to the bottom, there's just a server room, and that's what's controlling and making everybody bad. And
no,
it comes back later during the Enlightenment age,
see, I didn't
like the
even know
false
that.
prophet or something like that.
Um,
Um,
I play like I said, I played the ones on the Nintendo and Ultimate, and this is Nintendo version, Ultima 2 Quest of the Avatar. The idea was for you had 8 virtues that you had to get maxed out
yeah,
to the highest level possible. You had to be the perfect human being, basically, or elf
yeah,
or whatever the fuck you were. And one
yeah,
of the items you could find relatively early in the game was the skull of Mondane.
yeah. And did you use it?
Oh, yeah, dude, I played the hell out of that game. I've gone through with using it, and I've gone through without using it. And if you use it, it's not impossible to beat the game, but you're starting over from square one. Because if you use it
Everything
one time,
dies.
it kills everything on the fucking screen, but it turns every one of your virtues to the worst possible setting. Like you're not even starting from 0, you're starting from like a negative 100, you know?
Yeah, that one's the Ultima 4, Quest of the
Okay,
Avatar.
okay. That was on the
Um,
yeah, on the NES, it was Ultima 2, so
eventually, so like you talked about like you're playing through that storyline and you had to learn the Enlightenment and all the 8
oh,
virtues
yeah.
and stuff like that. And in the final storyline, you're fighting against this big, huge red dude from space, and that's the bad guy.
Mm,
And uh, essentially, you get kidnapped by him. You get pulled from Earth back into the planet that you're always on, Britannia, I think.
yeah, Britannia.
And um, they're like, "Oh, you should know everything already," but nobody knows who you are. You don't know what the 8 virtues are. You have to go out and rediscover them. And
Okay.
then everyone you're like, "What's a paladin?" Like, you are literally the paladin. Like, everyone knows who you are, but this game, because there's a change in the gaming companies, decided to start everything over again, but continue the story. So it made no sense you're playing the same character from Ultima 1, who's the essence of all the virtues,
Yeah, you
the
are the
only paladin
avatar.
in existence, the avatar of the name state, and then you're like, "What's her virtue?" in the last game. And then the series never recovered.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, well, they went to Ultima Online, and Ultima Online did very, very well. It made
Still
Richard
doing well.
yeah, it made Richard Garriott a very rich man.
Rich enough before he could build his own castle.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of videos of the parties and just the things that they have going on there. It would be so much fun to go hang out with that guy for one weekend. But
I want to play
anyway,
some D&D. No, fuck, you were playing Ultima. All right, we're gonna start with Alcabacus, or whatever it's called, the first
dude
one on
dude
DOS.
has it. I mean, the dude has a hidden library in his house. Like you have to go down, you have to find a hidden door, go down flights of stairs and everything.
If you
Uh,
had a hidden library, what would you hide? What books would you hide in there?
oh, if I had a hidden library like Richard Garriott, because he's worth, I don't know, $500 million or something. At that point, I'm only filling that library with old, rare ass textbooks that I am never going to read. But at the same time, it's that collector's thing of look what I've got. And everybody you invite over, you have to show them where the hidden library is at, even though it's supposed to be hidden. So we were talking about settings just a few minutes ago. And since we're talking about video games, let's continue this theme. So I was playing the Grim Dawn video game earlier. Have
Yeah.
you ever played it?
No.
All right, it's basically a Diablo knockoff. But Diablo's another perfect example of this.
Is it a
I
farming game?
No, it's Diablo knockoff, dude. It plays like
Well,
fucking Diablo.
I know what you play, and you like playing farming games, so it could be like Diablo farming, the farming game. I don't
I,
know.
I like playing crafting survival games. I play a lot of those, but I also play Diablo style games too. Play a lot of them as
Mm,
well, like Torchlight, Grim Dawn, Diablo, Dungeon Siege, etc. But anyway, what
not
I was,
Diablo 3.
yeah, I've played a lot of that too.
I'm
Have
sorry.
It was great. I enjoyed it. Anyway,
Sorry.
moving on. I was thinking there aren't any real settings like this in D&D. Grim Dawn, you could say it's kind of Ravenloft-esque, but these are worlds. Diablo and that world, these are settings where the world is literally just dying.
Yeah.
Humanity is on the verge of not existing anymore. Like you go to the biggest cities in Diablo. I think Diablo 2 when you're in the desert area, I don't remember all the names. Like that's the biggest city that you go to and there's a few thousand people living there maybe. Most of the towns and cities that you go to are absolutely freaking tiny.
Yeah.
And the entire world is nothing but monsters trying to eat you. Like these are the most horrible settings you could imagine and the world literally seems to be dying. And book wise, I was thinking of I don't know if you ever read the Brandon Sanderson Mistborn series or not,
No.
but that's another one where humanity's there, but the planet literally is dying, and the whole of the story is this one main character trying to find a way to prevent the end of the world. And I don't know why there's no real D&D settings like that. Like, probably the closest thing maybe would be, Dark Sun or maybe even Ravenloft,
Well,
but
Dark Sun definitely because I mean that's you're already living in a post-apocalyptic world with that magic.
yeah, but there's a lot of societies in Dark Sun that are
Yeah.
thriving.
I'm not too sure about that's the grim dark setting, the
Yeah,
grim dawn setting.
that's what I'm saying, just think of Diablo because it's the same.
The Diablo setting, the whole idea behind that is that everything has been kind of dying as a planet until the primevals were captured and basically re-killed, and then things are starting to kind of grow back from that, especially since the can't remember what they called them, the crossbreeds between humans and angels.
Oh, uh, not the Paragons. Fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something with a V.
I know the name, and I'm blanking on it, but anyway.
But since they're growing up, and that's all the heroes that you play in that game are essentially of that descended, half angel, half human bloodline. Um, and you're kind of getting back, so you have these big cities, but like you said, it's hard. I mean, you could definitely run any kind of domain of dread and kind of get to the same aspect. The domain of dread doesn't mean you just have to be like Halloween monsters and crazy stuff like that. You could have this like humanity on the verge of collapse, and just
Yeah.
have your small town and monsters everywhere. But I would assume that it would just tire your players out after a while.
Well,
Like
you're trying to save the world. It's not just I'm
right,
trying to beat a big bad guy. I'm not just trying to save my country. Like
right.
I'm trying to save everyone. And
So
that's that next level. That's epic adventuring.
so if you had something like Diablo, okay, I would definitely have to have a world map, like a hex-based world map where players are
Oh
going
yeah.
from one space to another. But just to travel from, let's say, like North City to South City. Okay, let's say it's a 5-day journey straight walking with no interruptions. And so that you'd have the five hexes in between, each representing a day's worth of travel. You would almost have a full 1 through 5 level campaign for each hex in a Diablo world. Because you think about like when in the second game, when he's trying to get out of Tristram to basically or go from Tristram to the chapel to find Decker Kane and back, that's Act 1. That's a couple 100 feet away from the city of Tristram.
Yeah. Well,
So
the
the
town of
entire
Tristram.
act, yeah, the town of like 4 people,
Yeah.
the entire act was him running a mile away, fighting through this endless dungeon to rescue Deckard Cain and bring him back. So that textile in a D&D setting, that would be just walking down the road would be half a year of just random encounter, random encounter, it would be so tiresome you couldn't get anywhere,
Well, I'm not
you
saying
know.
you don't have to build it in the same manner as Diablo, but it's just the idea of the setting of where the world is dying, and you're trying to find a way to prevent that. Less
Yeah, but
so.
the issue is the constant stream of monsters that are like attacking you.
Yeah. Well, it
Like
doesn't even.
that
Yeah.
doesn't work in D&D
Well, I'm
because
not.
it's you're just gonna kill your
They
players.
well, you say it doesn't work in D&D. They actually released Diablo for D&D in third edition. Like it
I
is out.
remember.
Yeah, yeah, it's out there. It exists. I've never seen a copy, unfortunately. Um,
Yeah, but it's still you're still playing that game with like, okay, you make it to the dungeon. But if you wanted a straight action adventure game, as much as you like straight from the PC to your tabletop, you would have to basically throw so many monsters and you have so many combat encounters with the players that you wouldn't get anywhere.
yeah, you wouldn't. You really and truly couldn't do it. I think like Diablo. the the world itself is the primary focus of what I'm talking about. If
Yeah,
you if you need to have set points, things that you're trying to accomplish along the way, obviously to tell the story for the setting. Uh, if you do it like Diablo, yeah, it's just a combat game. Yeah, you're just going to be fighting constantly, and that's not really tenable for a D&D
yeah.
game. There's minimal story doing it that way.
The other issue too is that Grim Dawn, like Diablo, it's very fun to play a very action adventure game because you're getting out there blowing up monsters, and that's where you kind of get the visceral reward. That's where you get your serotonin hit. Is you go out there and pop a goblin. That's where the fun is
Oh,
in
you don't pop
Diablo.
one,
Like
you pop 20 at a time.
right. Whereas a depressing setting at a tabletop would just make everybody depressed.
Well, that's
No,
not that is not even remotely true. I mean, well, it might be nowadays. Everybody's got mental issues or whatever. But I spent a long time, I mean, a good decade where I played Vampire the Masquerade every week, and that is a dark fucking setting that's very grim. And for me, it was fun as hell. It's all about storytelling and how you go about it. The setting is supposed to be dark, but you can absolutely tell good stories with a dark setting without, depressing everybody.
I think Ravenloft horror that's the hardest setting to convey at a table. I mean, for
Y-
me personally, I know it is.
To get the
Like,
feel for it is difficult. You have to do it
yeah.
right. Yes.
So to have a whole setting that's just that, like I would never, I don't think I could ever run Ravenloft. I can run bits and pieces of it, but I don't think I could keep that level of dark grim horror constant. Um, and so like even that kind of replaces Diablo, just that level of just innate helplessness, and you're just trying to thrive through it. I'm not much. I don't think I could do that. I don't think many people could. You
Yeah.
need to be very charismatic and be able to find some kind of visceral reward that gives you players hope while still the existential dread is stepping on their heads.
Yeah. Everybody has their preferences. For me, that's the kind of setting that really sort of gets me going. Like we've played 2 games of Ravenloft, and I am already just enamored with it. Like I
Yeah.
really love that setting because I don't know. I love horror movies. I love dark and gritty settings. But it's
Well,
definitely not for
dark
everybody.
and dark and gritty is different than a hopeless apocalypse.
I like hopeless apocalypse.
Eh, I like zombie movies. But I like popping zombies, so that's why it works as Left for Dead, but it doesn't work as tabletop.
Yeah, yeah. It might just
You
work
need,
for it may just work for video games and books. Who knows? But
yeah.
anyway, I got one last thing I want to talk about before we wrap this thing up.
No, I get some more important.
I figured you had some other stuff you wanted to chat about. So I'm going to get mine out of the way real quick because it won't take long. And then we can finish up with yours. So I ran last night. I think it was last night, maybe 2 days ago, whenever the hell it was. And I haven't run in a couple of months. So I had big plans for the game. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do the big plans yet. I'm just going to run something simple to get back into the groove of not having run for a couple of months. So I had continued on where they were at. They had a bunch of traps and shit that they had to go through, of which eh, yeah, they got through them all right. They killed some stone giants. They beat the hell out of a stone golem, which, by the way, stone golems used to be fucking terrifying, and now they're punk bitches.
Hmm.
Uh, but anyway, so they've kind of just bumbled their way through all the traps and the encounters and everything, and shenanigans have, you know, resumed. And they get to sort of the last trap along the way. Well, no, the previous to the last trap. And it's this weird trap where there's a glowing orb in the middle of the room. And as long as every 5 feet you step towards that light, it halves your movement. So it's pretty much impossible to walk straight at it. And the intended way to get around it is for you to backlight yourself. If you put a light source behind you, you can just walk straight to it. Well,
Mm-hmm.
naturally, my players, they circumvent everything I do. And Muffin has a dagger that he can throw and then just teleport to it. Well, I don't see any reason that wouldn't work. So he throws it up to the orb, teleports to it. And as soon as he teleports in, he looks directly at the orb, which completely fucking blinds him. So everybody else manages to get up there behind him, and Muffin is blinded, starts to walk forward. Well, underneath the orb is a stairwell. So I'm
Okay.
like, so he asked me, "Do I fall down the stairwell?" I'm like, "It's up to you, man. If you're gonna if you want to do it, make an athletics check." And he makes the roll and fails horribly. So he rolls all the way to the bottom of the stairs. He gets up at the bottom of the stairs, and they are in another room where there's a cyclops whose eye has been sewn shut, who's chained on top of a large rock and has a couple of sacks of rocks next to him. And any noises he hears, he'll just chuck rocks at. So it's a blind cyclops. They can see this.
Yeah.
What would you like? Your first thought would probably be to sneak around it, right?
Yeah.
Their first thought is to, "Hey, how are you doing?" Which, of course,
Not
then
far
it's
from Brown Rocks.
yeah, so it starts throwing rocks. I think it hit Muffin with a rock, which just pissed him off because he'd already fallen down the stairs. So at that point, rather than attempting to stealth around this thing, they all just go beat the shit out of it. Once again, ignoring the intention of the trap. And that just seems to be sort of a running gag with my players. Like they just look for ways of dealing with traps the way that is not intended. I don't know if you have that as an issue all the time or not, but I sure as hell do.
I mean, I like it when players are creative with a solution to get around. I guess if you want, there's always the physical challenge to a trap. If that's just what you want to do, you can always take the physical challenge, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
it may or
I,
may not work.
yeah. I will allow my players to kind of do whatever they're going to do. You know, obviously the teleport thing, I could have shut it down as a DM if I wanted, but I didn't have a reason to. You know,
Right.
the physical challenge was to beat up the Cyclops, which of course they're going to win the fucking fight. That was never in question. But you could have just skirted around the whole thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up. Go for it.
My wife DM'd her first game on Saturday.
Congratulations, Shelley, even though you probably will never hear the podcast.
Make her listen to it.
Yep.
She did really well. She didn't stumble, or I threw her for, a couple like loops, for things and actions that I do. She was afraid that we would TPK, the monsters would be too strong. Turns out a head bunting minotaur can kill most things. A frog killed me though, or at
Well,
least knocked me down. She
you're
didn't
first
kill
level,
me.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So everything is a threat.
Well, I have 11 hit points, and like I said, I swing 1d6 plus 4 twice in a round. So we were checking things out pretty handily. Um, no real issues. She forgot resistances for a little bit, and that happens to everybody.
Fuck
Um,
yes, resistance is at first level.
we had to fight an imp and a what was it quasit?
Yeah, closet. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
they would have resistances.
yeah. So she forgot those, but you know what? I would have forgot them too. Just to be perfectly honest. So
It's I forget resistances and shit like that all the time. It's easy to do.
she was really afraid that we wouldn't find a secret room, so she kind of like had some NPCs that were there, kind of like, "Oh, you should probably check the study. There's lots of secret stuff there," and
Giving you the hints that you should
yeah,
check the
giving
study.
the hints that we need to study. But we didn't really even need to find the secret area. We could have still figured out the final passcode without it.
Yeah.
Um, but she wanted to play through everything, so that was kind of cool. But she had a lot of fun, so she's willing to do some more Candlekeep in the future. But next Saturday is our one shot for Strahd, and then we starting Waterdeep Fiendish Summer.
Yeah, of which we talked about last week, so people should definitely want to check that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I assume all you and your players will watch, right?
Uh, if we're not running a game at the same time,
Hmm. Okay.
if I'm at home, I'll turn it on. You already know that, so
But yeah, that's all I wanted. I just want to congratulate her on her first gaming session, behind the screen.
I mean
She
that
had a lot of
it.
fun.
What's even more impressive because that was her first time DMing, and she ran it online, like for
Yeah.
for for Twitch.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's impressive. I sure as hell would have never done that my first DM session.
Foundry makes things so easy, man. I'll always suggest it.
Yeah, no, mind you, I understand she's been a player on your Twitch stream for a couple years now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When
So,
she started.
she has the experience on being on Twitch and so forth. But yeah, congrats. Good job running your first game there.
Yep, she tried to kill me, but it didn't work.
Oh, well, you keep talking like that, and she'll manage it. Yeah.
I'm
For
invincible.
yeah, so she might not just kill your character; she might even kill you. She knows where you
Oh,
sleep.
what's that? True resurrection doesn't work on you. Oh,
Yep,
darn.
chop you up, make tacos out of you.
I am a Minotaur. I guess I'd be beef tacos.
Fuck yeah, that sounds really good.
All right, I'm gonna get beef tacos. Greg, finish up.
Yep. Bye, Craig. We're out of here. We're going to get tacos.